So, because there's so much missing on this, I thought it might be helpful if we took a little more time and walked through it. The biggest piece I want you to take away from this is how to make sure that you have all of your attributes in, especially adding in those primary keys for each one. Because remember, each entity gets its own primary key. But let's just walk through it. If you think you got it, like, you can skip through this if you want, because I kind of went over this really quickly at the end of the last video, but I just thought it'd help if I kind of drew this out for you. So the first thing we want to do is look at the top of our diagram here at our person. And I'm going to try to do this annotation thing again, and I apologize for how awfully messy this turns out. It's just the way it is. Okay, so we know that anytime we have any sort of a supertype, we need to have our little curvy arrows. So I'm just going to draw those in preemptively because there's a lot of them. Cool. And this one is not a subtype, so we don't need any more of those. Awesome. Okay. So for the person, so what does this double line tell us? That is a total, right? So we know that every person has to be classified as either an employee, alum, or student. You're not allowed to be a person without a classification. Because it's this optional one here, we know that you can be a student or alumnus or a student or an employee and a student or any combination of those, right? So what we're going to have is this E equals Y, and that's how I'm going to shorthand this as the employees equals yes. We'll do an A equals Y. These are basically our domain indicators. Okay. The new attribute that is going to be attached to persons, which draw a little circle over here and draw a line kind of there. And then our text over here is going to be, I'm going to put it as it is here just to make this a little shorter, a little easier for us to handle on this screen. Yep, well, is A. And then you get 3 new attributes, right? Because anytime we have an optionality, we're going to get attribute for each one. Those are going to connect in there. And then, so these are going to be basically the E, the A, and the S. So each of the domains for those 3 new attributes is going to be a yes or no. So are they an employee? Yes. Are they an alumnus? Yes. Are they a student? Yes. Or no on any of those. Okay. Let's go down to the employee. So we know that the employee can be a faculty, can be staff, or they can be an employee that's not classified as one of those, whatever that actually means. So with this D here, we know that when we get down here that they have to be either a faculty or a staff. You can only choose one. So for these domains, instead of the E equals Y type one, we just throw the F and the S there. That's fine. An employee gets 1 extra attribute. And that one is going to be something like emp type. And the domain for that one would be FRS, basically. Any of the subtypes. It doesn't get it doesn't, like, if the employee is not classified as those, it's not going to show up as anything there, because this really only reflects the subtypes. And if you are an employee without a subtype, then you're an employee without a subtype. Awkward and confusing to think about, but that's the way that one is. Okay, for our student, we're going to flush this one out too. We know that this is a total. So everybody needs to be classified as either a graduate student or an undergraduate student. You can't be an unclassified student here. This is, again, a D, disjoint, choose one. Can't be a graduate and a undergrad at the same time. So we're gonna do the same thing, do the G, do the U. We're gonna do a student type. New attribute here, the domain would be the G and the U. You're gonna attach that in here. Okay, so far we've done pretty good. We've fleshed out everything inside of reflecting the completedness constraints and the disjointedness constraints, but we have not labeled all of our attributes. What is missing? It is actually our the rest of our primary keys. All right, so each one of these entities is going to have their own primary key. These are all one-to-one relationships, like we said earlier, so they all are going to match the poorly drawn. That's what you get. These are all going to match the primary key of their own super type. Although these are often going to be labeled on their own, so this might be like an employee social security number, because social security number is what we're using for person. This might be faculty social security number. This might be staff social security number. But in reality, the actual number, a graduate student is going to use the social security number just like the undergrad is, even though that the actual column names, let's do student, might be different, just so that they're unique within our database. Okay, we got all those labeled in. So you can see how many of these attributes are actually hidden inside of the simpler original diagram that you need to think about. So if you're looking at this diagram and you're asked, okay, how many attributes does a graduate student have? You know, originally we started off with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we have 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 attributes. That's a big difference. Okay, so you should be able to look at an incomplete diagram and flesh it out with all these other attributes hidden between the disjointed disconstraint rules and the fact that they all need to have the primary key, foreign key parts added in. And also just remembering that if this was connected to another entity that had nothing to do, or this, any of these could have relationships sticking out, that they'd also have more attributes connecting primary keys and foreign keys as needed. All right, so hopefully that is helpful for you in both thinking about studying for the test and for your own projects.